if you look at this in a global scale, a healthcare system creates 4% of our total CO2 emissions. And that's 2 times the CO2 emissions of aviation industry. It's an insane amount. And I think it's also really incredible to think about it, because, or at least when I started thinking about designing tools for the medical sector, I was never really aware that the medical sector is so polluting. You're very aware about aviation, right?
Yeah.
That's something everyone knows.
Yeah, those
Yeah,
are the
I
bad
was.
guys.
Yeah. Well, healthcare industry emits 2 times the amount of CO2 emissions, and
Mm-hmm.
there it's also a bit contradictory, right? We provide health to make people healthy again.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, this healthcare sector is so polluting that we also make a lot of people sick by the healthcare sector.
Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. My name is Dieuwertje Drexhage, and on this podcast I give the women who work in tech the platform they need to inspire and empower each other. Join me on a journey into the world of entrepreneurship, funding, biases and role models to discover the strategies for success in the tech industry. In other words, how women can disrupt tech. Are you ready to listen? Hey, welcome back to Women Disrupting Tech, and thank you for listening to episode 88. Did you know that the healthcare industry produces twice as much CO2 as aviation? The reason is simple. Most medical tools are designed to be used once and then thrown away. This creates waste, increases cost, and makes hospitals dependent on fragile and expensive supply chains. Dieuwertje Drexhage witnessed this firsthand when she was interning at a rural hospital in Kenya. She watched doctors reuse disposable tools, hoping they were clean enough for the next patient. She saw medical equipment piling up in dump sites, and she realized something shocking. We design medical tools that make healthcare inaccessible, expensive, and unsustainable. So when she came back, she decided to do something about it. She co-founded Layco to design a reusable vacuum extractor to make childbirth better for mother and child, more affordable and more sustainable. In this episode of Women Disrupting Tech, we cover Dieuwertje's journey of building a mission-driven and impact-focused health tech startup. We learned that most medical equipment isn't designed to meet the needs of 70% of the world's population, how reusable vacuum extractors can save both money and lives, and how Layco is safeguarding device quality and patient safety while also taking into account reusability and sustainability. Plus, you'll hear how Dieuwertje and her male co-founder Tom used humor to handle partners who kept directing technical questions at him, even though she was the one answering them. So when you're ready to listen and learn how to make childbirth safer and healthcare greener, please welcome to Women Disrupting Tech, Dieuwertje Drexhage. Good afternoon. Welcome to Women
Thanks.
Disrupting Tech. Good to have you. Question I always start with is how you got into your current job, current position.
Thanks for having me here, of course. I was always very interested in the medical field, but to be honest, I faint when I see the slightest drop of blood. So I knew very soon that medicine wasn't really the study for me. But I also really like the technical aspect. So I decided to study mechanical engineering. And within my master, I did the master biomechanical design. And there I did my internship in a referral hospital at the biomedical engineering department, where I lived in Kenya for half a year. And this was the place where every day I walked to the hospital and I saw those big signs which said no dumping, but it was full of medical garbage. And this is actually the moment when I realized that we're making a lot of medical equipment which just doesn't really suit the needs of I think 70% of the world population. So we make a lot of disposable medical devices, which leads to a high price per use, which makes a hospital very dependent on a well-functioning supply chain and has a big impact on the environment. And that's why I decided to do my graduation study at Surgery for All research group. From there on, the idea for Layco started. So straight out of studies, I started Layco, and that's the current position where I'm in still at this moment in time.
Okay. And how did you end up in Kenya?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I was looking for an internship where I could contribute. And to be honest, I just got this offer from the university. They said, hey, there's this referral hospital in Kenya, and we would really like to start a collaboration with them. We don't know them yet. We've had a talk with your potential supervisor only once online.
Mm-hmm.
We've never sent a student. We cannot arrange housing. We don't know what the exact assignment will be. Do you want to go there? And with every word they said, I got more and more enthusiastic. And I was like, yeah, hell yeah. Of course I want to go there. So yeah, that's actually how it went. Yeah.
Okay, so then you land on Nairobi Airport,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then what happens?
yeah.
Because
Well,
because
Nairobi,
the university couldn't arrange housing.
no. Yeah, so Nairobi wasn't my final destination. I was in Eldoret, which is really in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
But before doing my internship, this was a really big coincidence. But the moment that I got this offer to do my internship in Kenya,
Mm-hmm.
I was actually traveling through Kenya. So I got really enthusiastic about the offer, and then I was like, hell yeah, I want to do this, and I directly said yes. And then every Kenyan person I bumped into, I said, hey, I'm probably gonna do my internship in Eldoret, and everyone's direct response was, don't do it. And then I said, oh, but I already said yes. And I'm actually looking forward. So then I asked literally everyone I bumped into if they maybe knew someone who could help me get housing. And then I got in contact with a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend of someone I bumped into. And yeah, that person helped me to arrange housing there. And also arranged that a friend of her would pick me up from the airport. So that was really nice. Someone I'd never met, arranged my housing and arranged that I was picked up from the airport.
That sounds like a really big adventure then.
Yeah, but it was a really good adventure, let's say.
So maybe also then take us through the experience that you had, because you are there and then you're seeing a lot of disposable medical equipment.
Yeah,
And I think I read somewhere that you also saw a lot of equipment that was being reused and then sort of fixed and then reused again and
yeah.
until really used until the end of lifetime.
Yeah, I think I had the luxury that I was allowed to see everything. So the moment I started in the hospital, the first 2 weeks we were more or less shaping my assignment, and at the end we decided that I would make a digital platform for them to see where all the equipment was and what the maintenance was that they had done, and also to send them messages about planned preventive maintenance which they had to do. But to do so and to get a list of all the equipment there, I was allowed to literally enter everything in the hospital. I saw the operating theaters, the delivery rooms, literally everything. And I think I saw how really skilled all the engineers were, but also how limited the resources are which they have to maintain the equipment. So they have these workshops where they can maintain the equipment, but it doesn't go much further than having some screwdrivers to maintain and repair your equipment. And this is also where I indeed saw. So, for example, I joined the operating theaters.
Mhm.
And they just had done a surgery, and then they had all this equipment which is meant to be thrown away, and then it just disappeared in cleaning chemicals, and they tried to grab a brush and then just brushed something off and dropped it in the cleaning chemicals, and then literally 10 minutes before starting with the new patients, they would take it out of these cleaning chemicals, while you knew that that's not the way how to correctly sterilize it, but it's because this equipment is not made to be reused. And that was really something which, clicked into me. That was a moment that I thought, okay, so why aren't we making equipment which they can sterilize with the tools they have here? And then every day I would walk to my office, and I think, to be honest, at the beginning I was maybe a bit blind for it, so I would pass these big garbage fields full of medical equipment. But the moment that you start realizing, okay, this is all made to be thrown away and not to be maintained here, then you start to see it more and more. I think that was really a journey to discover. And it's also maybe a bit strange that I really had to travel this far to see this problem, because for me, if I look back, and maybe I think I have a very colored side on it, of course, but it's also sounds so logical, right? Why are we making in daily life? You wouldn't throw everything away which you use once either, right? So but I think that was a bit my journey there. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's take this a bit broader, because there's a lot of waste, I think, in healthcare at the moment. A lot of disposables as well, also
Yeah.
because of hygienic reasons, I think, or presumed hygienic reasons. Let's put it that way. How sustainable is healthcare?
Yeah, the healthcare sector has a huge impact on our environment, and I think in the last years we've focused on patient safety, and I think that makes a lot of sense. But to do so, we switched with almost everything to disposable items. While there are manners in which you can just say design a device which you can safely reuse, but because we create so much waste now, the healthcare system um, in the Netherlands alone is responsible for 7% of our total CO2 emissions and 4% of our total waste stream. If you look at this in a global scale, the healthcare system creates 4% of our total CO2 emissions, and that's 2 times the CO2 emissions of aviation industry. It's an insane amount, and I think it's also really incredible to think about it, because, or at least when I started thinking about designing tools for the medical sector, I was never really aware that the medical sector is so polluting. You're very aware about aviation, right?
Yeah,
That's something everyone knows.
yeah, those
Yeah,
are the
I
bad
was.
guys.
Yeah. Well, healthcare industry emits 2 times the amount of CO2 emissions, and
Hmm.
there it's also a bit contradictory, right? We provide health to make people healthy again,
Hmm.
but on the other hand, this healthcare sector is so polluting that we also make a lot of people sick by the healthcare sector.
Is there a relationship between how many disposables we use and how sustainable the healthcare system is, and accessibility of the healthcare system? Because you did your internship in Kenya, so you've seen, let's say, what happens if medical equipment is not that readily available.
Yeah. I think actually sustainability and accessibility really go hand in hand. So by making something disposable, of course, it has a big impact on the environment,
Hmm.
but it also leads to a high price per use. And especially in these low resource settings, you make a hospital very dependent on a well functioning supply chain. And the supply chain, especially in rural areas, can be very unreliable, very slow, and also very expensive. There are quite some studies which show that in a rural area, in a hospital in a rural area, a lot of medical equipment, 70% of their price is actually transport. So if we can cut out this transport a bit more, we
Hmm.
can lower the cost. We can if we can make it reusable, we can lower the cost.
Yeah.
Lowering the cost at the end also means that it becomes more more accessible.
I'm hearing you say so 70% of the cost is transport, right?
Yeah, not in every
No, but in rural
scenario.
areas. So would it then make sense to have more local, yeah, maybe production or recycle facilities there?
I think at the end it would make a lot of sense. We also looked into potentially producing, for example, in sub-Saharan Africa. But to be honest, the technologies aren't really there yet. So I think that's not 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 really true for every case. And of course, there are also a lot of skilled manufacturers, but I think most of the medical manufacturers are located outside of sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah, that
But
for
the
sure.
yeah,
But I
but
was wondering if technologies like 3D printing could help.
yeah. Uh, so I did my graduation thesis was a part of my graduation thesis was looking into this, and I still think that 3D printing in the far future can be really a solution. But to be honest, for medical equipment, I think 3D printing can be a solution for more general products which we use in life.
Hmm.
But for medical equipment, yeah, we also started off with this reason. In the medical field, patient safety is the very most important, and it's I
Uh-huh.
think making it more accessible and making it more sustainable. We should always make sure that the patient safety comes first. And for 3D printing, the more affordable 3D printing techniques and the materials, it's just really hard to make sure that the quality is high enough to ensure patient safety. I don't think that's the problem or the solution, or at least not yet.
Okay, so I was about to say, so maybe at a later stage, but not now. So let's now then focus on the possibility to recycle and reuse. Maybe it's an open door that I'm asking you to kick in, but how are reusable materials helping to make healthcare more sustainable?
Yeah, I like it that you say it's an open door because it feels like an open door. But to be honest, we did quite some research into this because it feels like the moment that you don't throw anything away,
Hmm.
it definitely needs to be more sustainable, right?
Yeah.
But to safely reuse something in a medical field, you do need to clean,
Yeah.
disinfect, and sterilize the device. In sterilization, you need often a lot of heat, which requires a lot of energy. You sometimes need cleaning chemicals. You need a lot of water. Um,
So
yeah,
no, one on
before
one, 1 plus 1 does not automatically equal 2.
No, well, I think there has been quite a lot studies recently to compare disposable alternatives to reusable alternatives and see what is more sustainable. And I think actually all those studies conclude that reusable alternatives are more sustainable.
Hmm.
But you do see that there is a switching point. So if you use this reusable device only 2 or 3 times, it isn't more sustainable. From
Hmm.
the moment that you start to use it 4 or 5 times, it becomes more sustainable. So yeah, we also did this analysis compared to our disposable competitors, where we looked at the CO2 emissions which we would emit in mining the materials, production, and then for us cleaning, disinfection, and sterilization, and then disposal. And yeah, I think we see that at this moment in time we can. So our product you can reuse it 100 times, and in this moment in time, if you compare to this disposable alternatives, you see that we can reduce waste by 98%
Hmm.
and reduce CO2 emissions by 40%. But we can't reduce it by CO2 emissions by 90%, and that's because the energy we still need in the
In the cleaning
reprocessing.
process.
Yeah.
You started Lyco. Maybe good to give a bit of background how that went because you come back out of or from Kenya, then you finish your study,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah. So to be honest, I didn't finish my study the moment that I started Lyco. So finishing my study took a bit longer because I started Lyco somewhere during my graduation.
okay.
Yeah, so I did my graduation at this research for all research group within the TU Delft. And there was my supervisor working on a device for low and middle income countries with the aim to make a device with not a new procedure, but make a device which is reusable instead of
Yeah.
disposable. And there was quite some research done by the TU Delft into this device already. And this project was about to end within the TU Delft. So then, they kind of asked me, don't you want to continue with this and bring it to market? And then I thought, why not? Because I was really passionate about the device. I really saw the need. So then I decided, okay, let's give it a try. But to be honest, I never saw myself as a classical entrepreneur, and
Uh-huh.
I also I don't have or didn't have any background in business development. So then I thought, okay, if I want to make this work, I need to find someone who has more experience in business development. By a mutual friend, I got in contact with Tom. He was working at Friesland Campina back then. Just finished his traineeship, and he was looking for a new challenge. So we started to work together every Sunday. We started drafting a business plan, and before I met him, I already requested a subsidy, and then we got this subsidy granted, and then that meant that Tom could quit his job, and we could both go full time.
Mm-hmm.
But we actually started off with a different product that we are working on now. So a year later, there was this graduation student from the TU Delft, and he just did his master thesis to a reusable vacuum extractor. And with the same mission in mind as what we had been working on. So he knocked on our door and he said, hey, I've been doing this as my master thesis and I would really like to continue working on it, but as a product engineer, and I don't want to start my company. Don't
Huh?
you want to, or start a company? Don't you want to continue with this device as well?
What
And then
was
we
the
were like,
first product, if I may ask?
yeah, of course. It was a reusable video laryngoscope. So it was actually used for intubation. So if a patient is unable to breathe themselves, you need to place a breathing tube into the airway of the patient, and you can do that with a video laryngoscope. And that again, it was a device which, after one time use, you are supposed to throw away, which hires the price per use a lot, and hires the impact on the environment. But this guy knocked on our door, and then we said, yeah, okay, let's go, let's do both. And then I think a year later, we decided, okay, we need more focus, and then we decided to continue with the vacuum extractor. And the vacuum extractor, what I really liked about the project, besides, I think our team was more capable of making the vacuum extractor. It's a fully mechanical device. We didn't need any experience in electrical development, which wasn't there in the team. It was easier for certification. There were less competitors on the market. The patent is stronger. But I think the main thing which I really liked is that it was really a request from out of the field. So there was this case study which had been performed in Uganda, where they did 3 years of training in how to use vacuum extraction. And as a result of this training, they increased the usage of vacuum extraction by 2%, and that led to a decrease of stillbirths of almost a quarter. But they had the problem that the devices they used were disposable, and they tried to reuse these devices, but often after 3 to 5 times reusing it, it will break, and most of the times it will break during use. So you
Ooh.
have the problem that you, first of all, actually can't really sterilize it correctly because it's not made to be sterilized. So you have a risk of infection, you have a risk of the device failing during the procedure. And they all of the time had the problem that they just didn't have any functional vacuum pumps. But while you do see that if you would have the possibility to use it, it can have such a big influence.
Yeah.
So that's actually where the clear request came from at that moment in time to the TU Delft. Hey, can't you make this into a reusable device? Because we really need it.
And then they came to you like, hey, Dieuwertje, you've got
Yeah,
this wonderful startup.
yeah. So I think that's the whole story.
Okay, so maybe also explain then when a vacuum extractor is used and what the purpose of it is and how it saves lives.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's used in the second stage of birth. So it can be used in two scenarios in the second stage of birth. So either, the birth isn't really proceeding, or
Hmm.
the mother's exhausted, or there are signs of fetal distress. So there's not the heart rate of the baby isn't correct, or
Hmm.
well, some monitoring shows that there's really a need to get the baby out now.
Yeah,
And in those two scenarios, you can decide to either do cesarean section or to use
vacuum
vaginal
extract.
assisted delivery. A cesarean section is a very invasive procedure which
Hmm.
needs a lot of people, needs a lot of resources, and is much riskier for the mother and child than vaginal assisted delivery. So
In what way?
you just see that there's a really big chance of, or really big, but a much bigger chance on complications in cesarean section than vacuum section, and the mortality rate is much higher, and also the chance of complications with follow-up pregnancies are much higher. So therefore, for example, in the Netherlands, you see that we prefer to use vacuum extraction if that's a possibility.
Hmm.
And in this case, if you decide to use vacuum extraction, you place a cup on the head of the child, and then you create a vacuum due to which the cup temporarily attaches to the head of the child. And then, together with the contractions of the mother, you can pull along, and in that way, speed up the delivery.
Yeah, I have to confess something at this point because hadn't not it not been for the vacuum pump, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't know that, but when I
Really?
was talking about your, because we met before for context, when I was talking to my mother about the product that you're
Yeah,
creating, she was saying, "Oh, that's how you came to, that's helped you being born," and I was like,
yeah.
"Okay." So
Yeah. I think in the Netherlands we use it in almost 10% of all birds, so
yeah,
it's used really often. So it's really funny that you say this, but it's not the first time that, for example, with material experts we've been talking to, they also told me, "Hey, my daughter is born
hmm,
via vacuum extraction." Or, there are so many people who know someone who was born by this
yeah,
way.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know myself in this case.
Yeah. Well, I'm very happy that the procedure already existed back
Yeah,
then as
back in
well,
the 70s.
Ditko.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, going back to your story, I was wondering, because in this case there's on the one hand there's a cesarean section that has inherent risks to mother and child, and not only in that birth but also later on. But if you create a vacuum pump, it has to
Yeah.
meet certain requirements, and it has to
Yeah.
be, if it has to be recyclable or reusable, I think there's requirements that come on top of it. How do you how do you do that? How do you
Yeah. I
take that all into account?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And yeah, what we already said a couple of times in this conversation, patient safety, of course,
Yeah.
the most important thing. I mean, you can make something which is more sustainable, but if you need to hand in patient safety for using a more sustainable device, we're going in the wrong direction.
Hmm.
Yeah, you always design, validate, and develop your device testing for patient safety. And because it's reusable, we need to show proof that it can also be sterilized
Hmm.
and reused safely for 100 times. So we did a lot of material tests, which are the materials which we should use, taking into account that it is sterilized at really high temperatures, sterilized with potentially very aggressive cleaning
Chemicals.
chemicals, but also doing a lot of tests on traction forces. Yeah, if you pull along with the contraction of the mother, there is quite a force which is exerted on the device.
Hmm.
We did a lot of tests together with sterilization departments of different hospitals to see, okay, if we place the device if we place it in a washer disinfector, does it get out clean? Where do we need to optimize the device? And I think, based on all these findings, we keep on improving the device, and that's also one of the reasons that we're already working on it for 3 years. But at the end, I think we also just need to oblige to the law, and we're now preparing everything for technical certification, or the technical file for certification, and we're also set our processes in such a way that we can guarantee product quality. So we just had our ISO 13485 audit this week. Luckily, we passed it, so we're now
Congratulations.
certified. Thank you very much. That also guides you to make a safe device.
Yeah, because in the end, there's a follow-up, I think, on that ISO certification, which is that you've proven that processes exist,
Exactly.
and at some stage you will have to prove that it's actually working. It's operated as such.
Exactly. So this is more about how we defined our processes to make a product which is safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, we hand in our technical file. So that's really the result of the processes with all the test results. So it's a simulated use, it's a clinical study, it's a sterilization, biocompatibility testing. And that technical file is being reviewed by a notified body, and then we'll get our CE certification. That's the European certification.
Yeah, and after that you can start selling, or is there still an intermediate step then?
No. The moment that we get our CE certification, we can start selling. And I do have to say, CE certification is certification really focused on Europe. So the moment that we want to sell into other markets, there are other steps.
How is that for Africa, by the way?
The continent sometimes makes it a bit hard for themselves, so they don't have an African certification. So every African country has its own, but most of them take CE or FDA, the American certification, as a lead. So if the moment that you can show that your CE is certified, you do need to get a check per country, but the process which you need to go through is quite okay.
It's lighter probably than
It's much lighter, and we're now in talks with a wholesale distributor, and they sell to 28 designated countries, lots of them in sub-Saharan Africa, and they can do this product registration in these countries for us. They have gone through this process so many times, so
they know
that will help us.
The ways
drill.
to get it through.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, because the reason I was asking this is you have a pretty interesting pricing schedule where you basically, these are my words, basically let more developed countries pay more for the same device than you let low and middle income countries. Is that correct?
Yes, so we decided we've been struggling with pricing for a while because we really wanted to make it more accessible in these low resource settings. And on the other hand, we really see the potential to make it more sustainable here. And we wanted to sell a product in two totally different kind of markets. And we do see a perfect fit, but it comes at a different price to reach the goals which we want to reach. And at the end, we decided to commit ourselves to the Sustainable Development Goals number 3, specifically 3.1 and 3.2, and that those are goals set on maternal and neonatal mortality. So we actually say we want to contribute to reaching these goals. So for the countries which have already met those goals, such as the Netherlands, they will pay a normal price, while the countries which have not met those goals yet, they will be discounted pricing to make it available better. Yeah, maybe to add one thing about the pricing strategy, if that's possible.
Yeah,
because we came up with this strategy, but later on we also did an analysis together with Deloitte. So they actually advised us on the pricing strategy, and luckily they came to the same conclusion, the good way to go.
Okay, well that's always good to have a party like Deloitte back you up.
Yeah.
Okay, so the reason I asked about the pricing is also there's a fairness, equality,
Hmm.
and fairness component to it, and the pricing is maybe not equal, but it's I think fair. But what do equality and fairness mean to you?
Wow.
Why is it important to you personally?
Yeah. Well, I always find it really strange to realize that the just the place where you were born is uh, so determining for the level of care which you're probably gonna get. If you look at yeah, I think 95% of all maternal deaths occur in low and middle income countries,
Hmm.
and most of them could have been prevented. And yeah, being born in the Netherlands as a newborn, your chances to survive are over 6 times higher than a baby born in Kenya. And I think if we talk about fairness and equality, I would say, yeah, let's make those chances a bit more similar, right?
Yeah, a bit more in sync.
Yeah,
And I think fairness and equality are also at the heart of the mission of Lyco.
yeah, yeah.
How does that play out? Except for the pricing and the product that you're selling.
Well, I think you see that we have a very mission-driven team. If you look at our team, you see that everyone really, yeah, everyone could earn a lot more money if they would decide to become an engineer somewhere else. But everyone really wants to be here and work on this mission because of the mission. Yeah, I think that's also really nice to see. Everyone has the same goal, and if I look at the conversations which I have with my colleagues or employees, this we can have fierce discussions, but there are
Mhm.
never discussions about the end goal. There are only discussions about how to reach the end goal,
Yeah,
and I think that's something which you really notice within the team. But I also think that's something which we really notice if you talk to potential end users, and everyone likes to think along because yeah, here in the Netherlands you feel that you really see that a lot of end users get very frustrated that uh, at home they are so careful with the waste, and they separate all their
yeah,
waste, and they don't eat meat anymore, and then in the hospital they throw everything away. And on the other hand, you have so many tropical doctors who also experience the lack of suitable equipment. We work with a lot of doctors in Kenya, Uganda, and you just see the drive of everyone to make it happen, and yeah, that's really nice.
yeah. I can imagine. So, what are the future plans for Lyco?
Um, Well, we just announced in the quote that we're fundraising, and
Hmm.
yeah, this year is going to be a very exciting year for us
Okay. How
because this
much do
is
you want to raise?
we're raising 2 million, and we've already got soft commitments for 1.3 million at this moment in time,
Okay.
and we've been invited to pitch at Femstart, her capital, by the end of January.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're very much we're very excited about that, and interested to connect with potential investors. And so I think that's one really big milestone. And yeah, by raising this money, we expect that we can finalize and certify Vela this year, and yeah, really bring it to the market by the end of this year. We already have 5 Dutch hospitals signed up to join our pilot, in which they are willing to pay to join the pilot.
Cool.
And we signed LOIs with 16 distributors here in the EU who really want to sell Vela. So we're in talks with organizations like UNICEF, UNFPO, WHO. So yeah, by finalizing Vela this year, we can bring it to the market and actually start to make the impacts.
Okay. And Vela is the name of the product.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Sorry, I
Ah.
didn't mention that earlier on. Yeah.
No, no, just for to be clear.
Yeah.
And what type of investors are you looking for?
We're in talks with different types of investors. So a lot of angels, quite some with a background in healthcare, which is for us really, really nice. But it's also, I think, for us really important that they align with our mission. So we're talking also with impact investors. And besides that, some more governmental supported investors like Home Invest.
Yeah, and that's one of the regional investment vehicles of the government, I think.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I want to switch gears a bit. It's about the team, because you have a mixed founder team. You have a male co-founder.
Yeah.
But you're the CTO.
Yeah, that's correct.
How does the outside world respond to that? Let's say
Yeah.
inside it's probably normal, but
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about it in preparation of this conversation, and to be honest, I think when we just started, it was sometimes hard, or I don't want to say hard, but we had a lot of conversations with the two of us and then a potential partner with whom, for example, we wanted to do a part of our development. And then you really noticed that, we would have a conversation for an hour with a potential, for example, technical development partner. And they would ask all their technical questions. They would direct them all to Tom and I would answer all of them. And then only towards the end of the conversation, you saw them like realizing, hey, you're actually the only one answering all these questions. Maybe I need to ask them to you.
How did that make you feel?
I think Tom became Tom became my best friend, and Tom is always way more frustrated about this stuff than I am. But I think the being able to discuss this and also make jokes about it at the end and with Tom, that.
Yeah, but that's internally. But
Yeah.
did you how did it make you feel when this happened? Like you're sitting in that room and probably like if it happens once, you're like, oh, maybe I need to clarify that I'm the CTO. But after like 3 times, I would be like, hey.
Yeah, maybe we also sometimes. I think it only happens in conversations in which you are orientating, right? So they don't really know the exact role division yet. So if it would really give me a bad feeling, it would just mean that I decide not to work with them, because I think in a collaboration, it's really important that you also like working with people who are on the other side of the table. And if it really left a bad feeling for me, then that was also a decision not to continue with them. But I never, I think the possibility to reflect on it later and laugh about it later makes that it never really leaves a bad feeling for a long time.
Okay. Yeah, that of course helps if you can actually have a chat and maybe a joke about it.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think in the more recent years, so it happened less and less. And I was thinking, what's the main reason? And maybe it's just because we're too busy. So all the conversations, some of the conversations which we did together in the beginning, we're now always doing it separately. So now there is not a possibility for them to ask these questions to Tom anymore, because Tom is not in that meeting. So maybe.
Okay.
So I haven't really, I didn't really bump into that problem recently.
Well, that's good. So I want to close. I always have 2 questions towards the end, and one of them is about my mission to make DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, the new normal, especially in technology by the end of 2032. How can I make that happen? What would be your advice to me? Observations.
I think definitely continue with what you're doing. I think role models are really essential in both for potential founders as potential investors. And I think I don't think that's a really an advice to you, because I think you are already, but I think for everyone, I think we need to be aware of our bias, and because I think that we can only change things in our society when we're aware of the bias which we have. I mean, I can tell you now what you need to do, but of course I also have a bias, although I don't want to be biased, and I think being aware of the potential bias which we have is really.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Who were your role models, by the way?
Um, Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I had my supervisor, my professor at TU Delft. I find her really inspiring. She started surgery for all research group. She started this insane research group within a world with TU Delft is of course very male dominated environment, and she became such a big professor in this field, and she's doing so much incredible work. I think if you would ask me on if you ask me on the spot, she's one of the first who pops up in my mind. Jenny Dankelman is her name.
Okay. Well, then that's on the record then.
Yeah,
So, yeah, thank you very much. Sounds like a great place to close the interview.
yeah,
If people want to learn more about you and about Lyco, where would you like to send them?
yeah. We've got a website, lycomedical.com, but I think most of the really recent updates we post on LinkedIn. Yeah, and it could also be found on LinkedIn.
Okay. And we'll include those links in the show notes. Dieuwertje Drexhage, thank you very much for this amazing interview and for educating us on how we can make childbirth a bit more sustainable and also increase the chances of survival in low and middle income countries. And listeners, thank you very much for listening to this episode of Women Disrupting Tech. And until the next episode, keep being awesome. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening to episode 88 of Women Disrupting Tech on how to make childbirth safer and healthcare greener with Dieuwertje Drexhage. Dieuwertje and I hope you found our conversation inspiring, and if you'd like to learn more about Dieuwertje, Layco, Vela, and the fundraising journey, please connect with Dieuwertje via the links in the show notes. As usual, you can find the show notes at Women Disrupting Tech, all one word, .blog. On the same website, you can also become a member of the Women Disrupting Tech community. As a member, you get early access to new episodes, you get a handwritten email with the special moments and my learnings of each of the episodes, plus you'll be the first to hear when new blog posts come online. So check out the show notes for a link. When you're looking for a role model to inspire your own hero's journey in tech, I invite you to check out one of the other episodes of this podcast on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And if you're a regular listener, please give the show a rating or a review because that way you help other people discover the podcast. If you're a male ally and you want to help the Women Disrupting Tech make this podcast obsolete by the end of 2032, there's a simple thing you can do. Please share the podcast with friends, family, and coworkers because this way you give my guests a platform they need to make it happen. Finally, if you want to connect with me, you can reach me via Dirkjan at womendisruptingtech.blog, or you can send me a DM on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, simply type in my name and you'll find me. With that, I wish you a wonderful day. I hope to see you in the next episode, and until then, keep being awesome.